Coming up on a newscast, the nation's COVID-19 tally remains in the 200,000 level. The government reviews a downgrade of the official risk level and gradually downsizing treatment centers. President-elect Yoon endorses the IOC's decision to ban Russia from competing in global sporting events. Next week, he plans to visit people in other regions to hear what can be done to help regional growth. Dozens are reportedly killed and injured in a Russian missile strike on a train station used as an evacuation hub. Ukraine's president called for tougher international sanctions and more weapons. Hello, we'll be wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. South Korea's total COVID-19 infections exceeded the 15 million mark. However, as there's been continued decline in the daily tally, the government is considering a downgrade of the official risk level. To better allocate resources, the option of downsizing treatment centers and using fewer hospital beds are also being reviewed. Shin Yeon starts us off.
South Korea on Friday reported 205,333 new COVID-19 infections. This was a drop of some 20,000 from the day before. Figures have also fallen by roughly 75,000 from a week ago. Authorities believe daily figures will drop to the low 100,000s in 2 to 3 weeks' time. On that note, authorities are looking to reclassify COVID-19 to a lower risk level. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum said officials are gathering as much data and analysis as possible to this end. Currently, COVID-19 is categorized as a level 1 infectious disease, the highest on the government's 4-tier ladder, and regarded as the most dangerous. A downgrade to level 2 would put COVID-19 in the same group as tuberculosis, chickenpox, and measles. Such a move could be followed up by the lifting of nearly all remaining social distancing rules. In the interim, however, the Prime Minister said partial adjustments to our current measures will be needed. This may include scaling back the number of hospital beds and treatment centers for COVID-19 patients with light symptoms. But at the same time, the Prime Minister said these measures need to be done gradually to make sure that the number of deaths and critically ill patients remain low. In order to do this, he asked for active participation on the vaccination front. He specifically asked those at nursing homes and other high-risk facilities to get their 4th vaccine shots.
Though we're seeing more high-risk people get their 4th shots, the participation rate in some districts only stands at 50%. We ask local governments for more participation so that we can give boosters to as many seniors as possible.
Starting next week, COVID-19 test centers will no longer provide rapid antigen tests. These centers will only be doing PCR tests on high-risk people. Everyone else will have to test themselves or visit a hospital or clinic to get it done by medical staff. This will allow medical staff at test centers to be relocated to other places where they are needed. Shin Yeon, Arirang News.
President-elect Yoon Sung-yeol's transition team expressed confidence that people should be able to feel the changes following relaxed virus prevention rules. This is part of the committee's push for what it calls sensible, science-based measures. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
President-elect Yoon Sung-yeol's transition committee is calling for the easing of restrictions to show more flexibility. For one, he proposed that the health ministry should allow eating and drinking at indoor stadiums as long as they can ensure fresh air quality.
The health ministry said it will promote ways to allow eating and drinking indoors under certain conditions like a proper ventilation system. The measure is expected to take effect next week when restrictions are to be revised.
This comes as the South Korean baseball season began last week amid eased restrictions, but some fans at Kochuk Skydome were still banned from eating because it was labeled as an indoor facility. Education is another area where the committee is calling for more flexibility. Following reports that some students were unable to take their midterms due to infection, the committee requested the Education Ministry ensure they have a chance to take their exams, like setting up a separate testing room for them. All of these are in line with the science-based pandemic response, which will guide the COVID-19 response roadmap for the Yoon administration's first 100 days of taking office.
Based on the principle of science, the committee will listen to the voices of the people and make revisions to any antivirus rules that aren't sensible.
Also in line with the science-oriented government, the Transition Committee Chair An Chol-soo visited Hyundai Motors Namyang R&D Center. An went around the site in a self-driving car and was escorted by a robot dog. He vowed to strengthen South Korea's competitiveness in future mobility, which he says will feed the nation after chips and smartphones. Lee Young-eun, Arirang News.
President-elect Yoon held a phone with the IOC chief. Next week, the incoming leader will be heading out of the capital to thank supporters and hear what can be done to help regional growth. In the meantime, the Defense Ministry started moving out of the building it currently occupies so the top office can be relocated upon inauguration. Kim Do-yeon brings the updates.
In his call Friday afternoon with Thomas Bach, the head of the International Olympic Committee, South Korean President-elect Yoon Sung-yeol said he supports the IOC's decision to call for a ban on Russia from participating in international sporting events in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It was Yoon's first official call with the head of an international organization. And according to his spokesperson, he emphasized the IOC's role in bringing people together around the world and pledged to make sure South Korea takes part in that. In addition, he asked for the IOC's close cooperation on matters including the successful hosting of the 2024 Winter Youth Olympics in Gangwon-do Province. Looking ahead, next week, Yoon will be hitting the road to visit areas outside the capital region. The spokesperson for the president-elect said the first goal for the cross-country tour is to keep his promise that he would bring them a victory in the election and thank the people for their support. Second is to show his commitment to regional growth.
The president-elect will see for himself what will help each region in restoring people's livelihoods, and as he emphasizes the most, how the new administration could achieve balanced regional growth and implement it as one of core agendas of the new government.
The first stops are in the city of Daegu and Gyeongsang-buk-do Province, home now to the impeached former President Park Geun-hye, who was recently pardoned and let out of prison. The president-elect is still considering whether to visit Park, but the situation is getting a lot of attention because while Park is from the president-elect's party, the president-elect as a former prosecutor took part in the investigations when Park was on trial for the corruption that led to impeachment and imprisonment. In the meantime, on Friday morning, the Defense Ministry started its move out of its current building in central Seoul, which will soon house the new presidential office. Movers were seen loading trucks and bags of confidential documents were set out to be destroyed. The Defense Ministry, after 19 years in the building, will be relocated to its new offices by mid-May. Also earlier in the morning, an insider on the president-elect's team said Yoon will not scrap the Korean New Deal just because the program was enacted by the outgoing Moon Jae-in administration. The insider added that Yoon knows how serious the situation is in terms of people's livelihoods and will consider any and all measures regardless of who proposed them if he believes they will help the country. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The People Power Party elected a new parliamentary floor leader. Kweon Seong-dong won the vote Friday in a landslide. The lawmaker said despite his friendship with Yoon, he will not hold back but speak plainly and give tough advice when needed. The president-elect highlighted that the party and the new government must work as one team to improve the lives of the people. Yoon also emphasized the need for close cooperation with the Democratic Party, which will still have a majority in parliament. A delegation sent to Washington by South Korea's president-elect suggested holding a meeting of the allies' top diplomats and defense chiefs. They also discussed holding a South Korea-U.S. summit at an early date. Yoon Jung-min reports.
President-elect Yoon Sung-yeol's delegation to the U.S. suggested to Washington a joint meeting involving the two countries' top diplomats and defense chiefs to discuss security issues following North Korea's recent intercontinental ballistic missile test. At a press conference in Washington on Thursday, the head of the delegation, Park Jin, said they have suggested a so-called 2+2 meeting within this year, adding it's desirable to hold a meeting every year if possible. The delegation also exchanged views with Washington on the need to hold a South Korea-U.S. summit at an early date to bolster the bilateral alliance and address Korean Peninsula affairs. Park added the U.S. side also sees eye to eye on the idea of holding the summit when U.S. President Joe Biden visits Asia. The date and details will be sorted out through diplomatic channels. On the Quad issue, Park said the new government will look for ways to cooperate with the alliance of the U.S., Japan, India, and Australia, including through a working group. Areas for cooperation could include new technologies and fighting COVID-19. They also relayed hopes that South Korea takes part in the U.S. Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, Washington's economic strategy for the region. He also commented on the remarks made on Thursday by the nominee for U.S. Ambassador to Seoul, Philip Goldberg, on CVID, meaning complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. Park said Goldberg's comments that CVID fits Washington's non-proliferation goal does not mean that the U.S. has suddenly turned hawkish, but rather Washington is returning to the basic principle on North Korea's nuclear issue. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
North Korea marks the birthday of its founder on April 15th. Often the regime will put on a large military parade for the occasion. There are signs that could happen again. Meanwhile, satellite images show work going on at the Hermit Kingdom's nuclear test site. Song Yoo-jin has the details.
North Korea is just a week away from celebrating one of its most important holidays, April 15th, the birthday of the country's founder, Kim Il-sung, known as the Day of the Sun. Apart from previously holding festivals and issuing postage stamps to mark the occasion, the regime has also held military parades in the past. As this year marks the 110th anniversary of Kim's birth, experts forecast that one will take place next week as the regime tends to mark 5th and 10th anniversaries with large-scale events. New satellite images are backing up the prediction. Images from Planet Labs taken on Thursday morning showed tens of thousands of people filling up Kim Il-sung Square, located in the capital, Pyongyang. Using placards, people in a section in the west of the square spelled out "United with one heart," while those in the eastern section combined to make an emblem of the ruling Workers' Party. The images also showed what appeared to be either groups of cars or lines of soldiers near what might be a military parade training site. Should a military parade take place, all eyes will be on the type of weapons showcased. The North has previously unveiled major weapons during parades, such as the 북극성 5 submarine-launched ballistic missile last year and the Hwasong 17 intercontinental ballistic missile 2 years ago. Analysts are warning that the North could also stage further military provocations this year. For one, the U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Sung Kim, said on Wednesday that there could be another missile launch or even a nuclear test on the Day of the Sun, stressing that Washington and its allies should be prepared. That warning could turn into a reality as the international community has been detecting ongoing developments at the North's Punggye-ri nuclear weapons site. In a new report released through the Open Nuclear Network on Wednesday, satellite images showed clear indications of a newly uncovered entrance to the site's Tunnel 3, evidence of excavation, and continuous signs of traffic near the tunnel. The report added these observations could hint that the North is restoring the tunnel for a future nuclear weapon test. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea pays respect to 2 Coast Guard officials who died following a deadly helicopter crash early Friday. They were returning from a search and rescue operation for a ship that went missing the previous day near waters off Taiwan. Kim Ji-yeon has the full story.
President Moon Jae-in expressed deep condolences after 2 South Korean Coast Guard officials were killed and another went missing as a result of a helicopter crash earlier Friday off waters of the country's southern Manado Island. 4 people were aboard the Sikorsky S-92 helicopter after it went down in waters 370 kilometers southwest of Manado Island at 1:32 a.m. Friday. Cheonwadae spokesperson Park Kyung-mi said in a statement that the president had called for utmost efforts to find the missing crew members and wished for the recovery of another crew member who was rescued. The helicopter was returning to Busan after dropping off 6 Coast Guard officers onto the patrol boat that was on its way to aid with a search and rescue operation for a ship carrying 6 South Koreans that went missing in waters off Taiwan the previous day.
During the operation, the captain was found conscious, but the co-pilot was not responsive. Rescue team officers carried out emergency response measures, but unfortunately, the co-pilot and a vessel radar operator could not recover consciousness and were confirmed dead.
Regarding the latest about the 6 South Korean nationals who were aboard the 322-ton Kyoto 1 vessel, which sent a distress call to Taiwanese authorities on Thursday, South Korea's foreign ministry confirmed late Friday 2 bodies were retrieved from the site. The identities of the deceased are currently being verified by their family members. To aid the search and rescue operation, South Korea dispatched a 3,000-ton patrol ship scheduled to arrive at the Taiwanese site on Saturday. Another vessel carrying professional divers is slated to arrive next Monday. The ministry, which is running round-the-clock emergency response measures, is looking into the cause of the incident but says it's currently ruling out the possibility of an abduction. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, intense fighting continues as Moscow seeks to expand control over the Donbas region. Ukrainian officials said several were killed in a Russian missile strike on a train station used as an evacuation hub. Our Min Soo-kyun is standing by on the line with the latest. Soo-kyun, do fill us in.
Well, unfortunately, dozens were killed on Friday after Russian troops allegedly bombed a train station where civilians were waiting to be evacuated from the Donetsk region. This includes women, children, and elderly evacuees as well. Ukrainian officials said that at least 30 were killed and over 100 were wounded. Reportedly, about 4,000 people were at the train station at the time of the attack. Officials have been urging civilians to evacuate areas in eastern Ukraine as Russia shifts its focus to liberating the eastern Donbas region. Earlier, the Ukrainian presidential advisor said that Russian airstrikes are now focused mainly on the east.
Japan said it would ban coal import from Russia, joining Western nations in imposing fresh sanctions on Moscow. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, sure. As you mentioned, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced today that it will phase out coal imports from Russia, but it did not provide a specific timeline for the coal phase-out. It's a big move made by Tokyo as Russia is one of the country's largest coal suppliers. The latest measure is in line with the decisions made by the Group of Seven on Thursday. In a statement, the G7 leaders said they've agreed to phase out and eventually ban Russian coal, as well as ban new investments in key sectors of the Russian economy, including the energy sector. On that same day, the European Union also approved a 5th round of sanctions against Russia. The new measures include the first EU ban on imports of Russian coal, as well as the closing of ports to Russian vessels. Meanwhile, the U.S. Congress passed legislation suspending trade relations with Russia and banning Russian energy imports like oil, natural gas, and coal. The 2 bills that were passed on Thursday are now headed to President Joe Biden, who is expected to sign them into law. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Soo-kyun, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. Moving on to other stories now. China, the world's largest EV market, is losing sleep over soaring lithium prices. According to the latest report from the pricing provider Asian Metal Incorporation, lithium carbonate prices shot up almost 472% in mid-March compared to last June. The price index by Benchmark Mineral Intelligence showed a sharper spike, soaring nearly 490% in last year. The surge is likely due to soaring demand for EVs met with tight supply levels. Beijing called in battery manufacturers, industry groups, and automakers last week to discuss a rational return for lithium, underscoring its anxiety over the rising raw material costs. The stage is set for BTS to light up Vegas starting Friday as part of the 4-night residency at the Allegiant Stadium. The concerts are called Permission to Dance on Stage Las Vegas. The shows are expected to attract more than 250,000 fans. They'll also be screened live at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, located further up the Strip. Other than the performances on April 8th, 9th, 15th, and the 16th, there are lots of BTS-related attractions throughout Las Vegas, such as a fountain show choreographed to the K-pop band songs outside the Bellagio Hotel, and an exhibition of behind-the-scenes photos from BTS concerts in Seoul. A hiking trail near Cheongwade that had been off-limits for more than 5 decades has reopened to the public. Pugaksang Mountain had been closed due to security reasons. Now visitors can soak in the nature, culture, and history of the area. Choi Min-jung takes us there.
Spring is here, and people are heading up to the mountains, but there's a new path they can hike this year. Earlier in the week, a hiking trail behind the Blue House reopened to the public for the first time in 54 years. Now that the gates are finally unlocked, people are out to enjoy.
I came with a friend who lives close to me after watching the news. It's a new feeling, and I feel good too.
It was a track that people could not walk on, so I feel grateful.
Our house is nearby, and we came here 2 days in a row.
I've lived in Seoul for 40 years, but it's my first time coming here. The scenery is great, and the weather is perfect. I never knew there was a place like this in Seoul.
This trail on Pugaksang Mountain was closed in 1968 after North Korean commandos attempted to assassinate then South Korean President Park Chung-hee. The mountain was partially opened in November 2020 when President Moon Jae-in decided to return the northern part of the Pugaksang Mountain to the public. And with the reopening of the southern part in April 2022, the entire mountain has become completely open.
We've been on the other track in the north, but it is our first time on this one. It is the same place, but the air feels different.
Hiking up the 5.2-kilometer trail, people can see various places of cultural interest, like the mineral spring visited by South Korea's first president, and the remains of a temple that is said to have been built during the Silla dynasty. Reopening this historic mountain was one of President Moon's goals during his time in office. It also comes ahead of President-elect Yoon Sung-yeol's plans to return to the public the gardens, parks, and traditional buildings of the Blue House complex. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Light spring rain will be falling across the Seoul metropolitan area tomorrow morning. On and off showers of 5 millimeters are expected. While most regions will be warm, Gangwon-do province and parts of the south will be even warmer. Temperatures will be close to what we normally see in early summer. Dry conditions are persisting across the nation. Dry weather advisories are issued for much of eastern regions and the capital area. Gusty winds are also in the forecast for the East Coast. Winds will be gusting up to 10 to 18 meters per second for eastern Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces. Forest fire warnings are in place for numerous cities across Gangwon-do province, so for those in the area, please take extra precautions. Morning lows will range from 7 to 12 degrees Celsius nationwide. Seoul will start up at 7 degrees. And daytime temperatures will rise quickly. Seoul will get up to 22 degrees. Daejeon and Gwangju 25. Daegu will make it to 27 degrees. For the time being, daytime highs in the capital will surpass 20 degrees Celsius. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.